Australia has cancelled 2 Chinese Belt and Road Initiative deals with the Victoria state government, saying they were inconsistent with national interest, and that provoked an angry response from Beijing. Why does the Australia end the deal, and what are the hidden facts inside China's Belt and Road Initiative? Welcome to Beyond the News. I'm Faye. Today we'll start from the Australia and China tangle on the BRI deals and dive deeper to see the true face of China behind this largest investment project in history. On April 21, Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne officially cancelled the state of Victoria's controversial Belt and Road Initiative BRI deals with Beijing, saying they weren't consistent with national interest. 2 deals with Beijing were 2018 Memorandum of Understanding between Victoria and China on cooperation within the BRI and 2019 Framework Agreement on jointly promoting the BRI. 2 other deals between Victoria and Syria and Iran were also cancelled. Payne exercised lately granted new law that gives the federal government the power to overrule international agreements by low-level administrations that violate the national interest. She said, these 4 arrangements to be inconsistent with Australia's foreign policy or adverse to our foreign relations. We are very careful and very considered in that approach. And this action, for sure, sparked outrage from China. The Chinese embassy in Australia said in a statement the decision further shows that the Australian government has no sincerity in improving China-Australia relations. It is bound to bring further damage to bilateral relations and will only end up hurting itself. The Global Times, a mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, said in a headline, Australia faces serious consequences for unreasonable provocation against China. The move makes a significant escalation that could push icy bilateral relations into an abyss. But why does the Australian federal government tour up the BRI deals with Beijing? Why does the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison also see no benefit from the deal? We'll then dive deeper to see what is the real BRI. The China Belt and Road Initiative, also called One Belt, One Road, is the biggest investment project in history. The land belt runs from China through South and Central Asia into Europe, while the Maritime Road connects coastal Chinese cities with Africa and Mediterranean. The plan is for China to invest trillions of dollars to build critical infrastructure such as ports, bridges, railroads, and energy facilities in dozens of countries, with a quiet but ambitious aim. What is that? Stay with me and you'll find it out. To date, at least 169 countries and international organizations have signed trade and infrastructure deals with China as part of the initiative. Together, these countries account for up to 40% of global GDP, a whopping $21 trillion. Key projects of the land-based belt include a 12,000 kilometers railway connecting London to the Chinese city of Yiwu, that is the new Eurasian Land Bridge. A highway that connects Kashgar in China far west with Pakistan's Gwadar port. This port is Pakistan's gateway to Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. It also occupies a critical strategic location connecting the Strait of Hormuz. This very narrow Strait of Hormuz actually is the world's most important choke point for the transport of oil. For a better understanding of the scale, for example, in 2018, the average number of barrels of oil and other petrol liquids passing through the strait was about 21 million barrels per day. This is about 21% of the entire world's daily petrol consumption. And the Chinese Communist Party gained the right to operate the very near Gwadar port in 2013. For the sea-based road, the general framework is to build a number of strategic ports. In financially robust countries, Chinese companies enter into equity participation. In financially weaker countries, China invests large amounts of money locally and attempts to obtain the right to operate their ports. In 2013, China Merchants Port Holdings bought 49% equity from Terminal Link SAS in France. With this purchase, it obtained the operating rights to 15 terminals in 8 countries on 4 continents, including the South Florida Container Terminal in Miami and the Houston Terminal Link, now called the Terminal Link Texas. Other ports and terminals now under China's control, including the ports of Euromax Terminal Rotterdam in the Netherlands, the Suez Canal Container Terminal in Egypt, and Panama Canal, etc. In addition to investment, the Chinese government also uses the debt traps created by BRI to obtain control of strategic locations. I think the case of Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, which was leased to a Chinese company for 99 years since 2017. The reach of BRI is vast. According to a November 2018 report by the New York Times, Chinese government has constructed or is constructing more than 40 pipelines and other oil and gas infrastructure projects, more than 200 bridges, roads and railways, almost 200 power plants for nuclear power, natural gas, coal and renewables, and a series of major dams. In the early stage of BRI, the Chinese government focused on neighboring countries, reaching as far as Europe. Very quickly, they expanded its reach to Africa, Latin America, and even the Arctic Ocean, covering the entire world. Chinese President Xi Jinping once said the BRI focuses on connectivity, achieving mutual gains and development. Proponents said such investment in projects can benefit the whole world and lift millions of people out of poverty. But is that the real case? Let's take Montenegro as an example. In 2014, Montenegro, against the EU's advice, accepted a $1.2 billion loan under the BRI to build a highway. According to the report by Political, the loan makes up 25% of the country's overall debt. 4 years later, the highway loan began to impact the country's economy. The country's debt significantly increased and forced the government to raise taxes, partially freeze public sector wages, and end a benefit for mothers. And Montenegro is not the only country suffering from BRI. The US government's Policy Research Organization Center for Global Development warned about the debt implications of BRI. It identified Montenegro as one of 8 high-risk countries that could suffer from debt distress due to the future BRI-related financing. The other countries including Djibouti, Laos, Mongolia, Pakistan, etc. So, these countries definitely have not benefited from the BRI at all. However, the Chinese Communist Party has gained a lot from the BRI. The initial goal of BRI is to export China's excess capacity by building up basic infrastructure such as railways and highways in other countries. We won't talk about that whether this is real or not for today, but by building infrastructure in these countries, the Chinese Communist Party accomplishes 2 secondary goals. One is to open routes to ship domestic products to Europe at low cost. The other is to secure the strategic resources of these countries that participated in BRI. These countries are rich in resources and energy. The actual intention is to increase mainland Chinese exports, not to help these countries to establish their own manufacturing industries. And the real ambition behind BRI is to use economic strength as a vanguard to establish control over the financial and political lifelines of these countries, transforming them into colonies of the Chinese regime and pawned on the global stage. As BRI took shape, we can see clearly CCP is aggressively promoting the yuan as an international currency. Chinese-made telecommunications networks, including 5G, are being pushed in many countries. Their efforts to supplant the United States on the world stage is growing. For BRI participants, the project is a deceptive trap that will not bring lasting economic prosperity, but it is a weaponized approach to help the Chinese Communist Party to dominate the world under the guise of globalization. What is worse, the BRI is just one of the strategies the Chinese Communist Party applied to achieve its world ambition. In our channel, we'll talk more about it in the future episodes. So, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, smash the like button please, because your like will force the YouTube algorithm to bring the video to potentially thousands more people. Make the truth far and wide. Leave me a comment below if you have anything to say. Alright, that's all for today. Until next time, I'm Faye from Beyond the News.